My dad traveled a lot for work, and Utica was part of his territory. He would go to Utica and he would come back and be like, son, I had the most unbelievable food in Utica, New York. And he would tell me these stories about these restaurants that he would go to, like the Chesterfield and Giorgio's Village Cafe. And it just sounded like this magical, mythical place in my mind. Of course, it was Utica. Hey everybody, I'm Noah. Welcome back to another recipe drop. Today we're making a recipe that is really special to me. It's called Utica Greens, and as the name suggests, it comes from Utica, New York. There's a lot of really great Italian-American restaurants, kind of red sauce joints, and on the menu you'll often see what's called village greens, and that is basically a play on classic Italian-American braised escarole, except we're gonna kick it up a little bit with prosciutto, pecorino, and cherry peppers. I love this dish a lot. The way that I like to cut my escarole, it's sort of like you might cut a head of romaine. I like to keep the base intact and just go around. I'm not looking for anything super fine. And you can leave these leafy bits at the top a little bit bigger than these stockier bits. Now, escarole can be a little bit bitter. So just like you would for, I don't know, say broccoli rabe, some kind of other bitter green, you probably want to blanch this in salted water before you incorporate it into any recipe. And that's also why this is going to stand up so well to like the spicy, briny cherry peppers and the really sharp pecorino that we're going to add to it, because it has a really strong characteristic flavor. But oh wait, I have a tip. I don't think I came up with this tip. This might be like a Chef John classic, but everybody always says your pasta water or your blanching water should taste like the sea or the ocean, and it should not. It should taste like a soup. Like it should taste seasoned. Actually, it could use a little more. But if it tastes like the ocean, it's too salty. In with the escarole. And that'll cook for 2 minutes, roughly. We got 2 minutes here. There's a lot that you could do with this precious time. Every second counts. You could go on Instagram for a little bit. You could watch the intro of a Food52 video on YouTube. You could go give a kiss to a loved one. We're only here for a short time. You should make every minute count. This isn't really like, we're blanching this, but it's not a blanch like you might imagine for green beans or some kind of like sweet, tender vegetable where you literally just blanch it for 30 seconds and then drain it, shock it in ice water or under cold water. We want to let this cook for 2 minutes so that we can leach out some of the more bitter flavors, kind of round it out, give it a little bit of sweetness. So this is a very important step. This, I guess, classically would be a side at a restaurant, like let me get a side of the village greens. If you add, say, white beans or cubed potatoes, this becomes a little bit more filling, like it becomes a little bit more of a meal. I'm hungry. I'm gonna add some beans. Now the recipe doesn't call for beans, but I do think I say in the note, like it's a lovely thing to add. We'll drain the escarole. All right, I'm going to the sink. I want to pretty quickly run this under cool water just to stop the cooking process. Leave this to drain. And the other beautiful thing about this dish is it's going to get broiled with a crispy Oreganata breadcrumb topping, but we'll just build it right in the pan that we're also going to broil it in. So I'll just put this over like a medium-low heat and start with a couple slices of prosciutto. Now imagine this is sort of like a bacon kind of component. That fat is super flavorful because this has been cured and salted and aged for a long time. So I'll just give this a really quick dice, and we'll put this in the pan first so it can brown and give us some of that fat to help us cook the other aromatics. It can be pretty rough. A couple tablespoons of olive oil in the pan just to get us started. I grew up not that far from Utica in a sleepy little town called Rutland, Vermont. My dad traveled a lot for work, and Utica was part of his territory. So he would go on trips and he would have like, I don't know, like business dinners or whatever. He would go to Utica and he would come back and be like, son, I had the most unbelievable food in Utica, New York. And he would tell me these stories about these restaurants that he would go to, like the Chesterfield and Giorgio's Village Cafe, and the food that he would eat. And it just sounded like this magical, mythical place in my mind. Of course it was Utica. But it's just interesting to me that there's this kind of 60,000 people live in Utica, right? And it has the food culture of a major city in a lot of ways. It's just interesting to me. I think it's cool when people rally behind local food like that. I really make this dish at home all the time, just because it's so simple and quick and delicious and crowd-pleasing. So the key with the prosciutto is you want to cook it pretty slow. Like, I want some of that fat to come out, and I want to develop a really even color and a nice caramelized flavor. You can see that this has come to a really nice golden brown. It's given up a little bit more fat. It's a really even color, and it smells really crazy in here. It smells really good. At this point, I'm gonna introduce the onion into the prosciutto. We're just building layers of flavor. We'll also add some garlic. Not too precious with the chop on this garlic. Rough chunks. Maybe run through it once more with my knife. Add in the garlic once the onions are just translucent. And then what makes Utica Greens distinct is the addition of cherry peppers. Sometimes it can be hard to find the whole cherry peppers in the store, especially the hot ones. What I find a little bit more readily accessible is this cherry pepper hoagie spread. I keep this in my fridge. It is so good, especially with like a mayonnaise, like mix it with mayo and put it on an egg sandwich or something. I like to add a little bit of this to the base of my Utica Greens, in addition to just like your standard issue, sweet cherry pepper. Take 1 or 2 of these. And when you get them in whole, you just have to make sure to de-seed them, which is just a matter of scraping out as many of the seeds as you can manage with a knife. 1 or 2 sticking around is not gonna be the end of the world. But they can just be a little bitter, and we don't necessarily want the texture. Just a couple, like a tablespoon's worth. These are our sweet cherry peppers in. A little bit of the hoagie spread goes a long way. There was this cheesesteak place in South Philly, Phillips? Yeah, Phillips. And they have a big tub of hot red cherry peppers sitting outside. And so you get your cheesesteak, and you can get a cherry pepper like this, and you take a bite and drizzle it all over your cheesesteak. So I take a cue from that, and I give myself a little drizzle cherry pepper sidecar whenever I make Utica Greens. If I was adding beans, which I am, I would add them now. And now it's time to add back in that escarole. If you've done this right, it should be a little hard to stir in the pan. We want to overload this pan, because this is eventually going to be what we serve and eat this out of. Don't worry if this seems like a lot of greens. Also add in just a touch of chicken stock. The key to this dish is a really simple oreganata that's a very lightly seasoned breadcrumb mixture with added pecorino cheese. Start with just standard Italian breadcrumbs, a pinch of oregano, and then pecorino cheese. If you're not familiar, this is like Parmesan's saltier, sharper cousin. It's really good. I recommend keeping it on hand. We're gonna use a lot for this recipe. So I'll grate it on the side because I also want to put it on top. So you get kind of an extra layer of a cheese crust. And part of this oreganata is gonna end up actually getting mixed into the Utica Greens. It sort of acts as a thickener for that chicken stock that we just put in. Always more pecorino than you think. I actually ended up using all of that. A portion of that will be mixed in. Again, that just evenly distributes that cheese flavor. It thickens up the broth a little bit. It's gonna tighten it up, especially when it goes into the oven to broil. And for a super crispy top, more of that oreganata and more of that pecorino cheese. A little olive oil just to help, I don't know. I actually don't know why I put the olive oil on. It just actually feels good. I think it, in theory, it should help develop a little bit of a crust. We built the Utica Greens directly in our skillet. I'm gonna throw this under a hot broiler. Keep a really close eye on it to make sure that it doesn't burn. We should get a super crispy, crackly cheese crust on top. I'll go pop this under the broiler and be right back. If you thought this had enough pecorino already, you were wrong. Finish with a touch more pecorino cheese, some fresh olive oil. And like I said, I like to take one of the whole cherry peppers, take a bite, squeeze any of the remaining juices directly over the Utica greens. This is not traditional by any means, but it does add a lot of extra flavor. You also can add a little bit of the cherry pepper brine in when you're making the greens in the first place. Add that as part of the base. It adds a nice kind of like salty, briny flavor. I'm gonna give this a try. Oh man, it's so good. This is really one of my favorite foods of all time. It's really hearty and comforting, but you get that sharpness from the pecorino, that brininess, that sweet, it's thick, it's warming, it's inviting, it's fun to share, and that crust. I mean, the Oreganata, it gets super crispy. The cheese melts into its own kind of like shatteringly crisp cheese cracker, crispy, crusty layer. I have a recipe for Utica greens on food52.com. You can make this yourself, one of my favorites. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.